Well, my next guest is a founding member of the Allman Brothers Band. As such, he is a Rock and Roll Hall of Famer. He's now working with his own freight train band. I welcome to Sports Talk 1240 tonight, Butch Trucks. Butch, good evening.
How are you?
Great to have you with us.
It's great to be with you. I was kind of surprised today when my manager said, hey, we're going to do a sports talk show on Super Bowl Sunday, and I'm figuring, well, you think you got a big audience?
Well, you're the draw. You're the draw, Butch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I'd like to believe that. Okay.
We're going to kill. We're going to kill in the ratings. Don't worry. Now, let's talk about your early influences, Butch.
My early influences?
Yes, as a drummer.
Oh, as a drummer.
As a drummer or as a musician?
Well, as a musician, I started out in church. And,
okay.
I had a beautiful soprano voice, so as an 8-year-old, I'd get up in front of church and sing "I Believe" and watch my mom cry all over the place and all that kind of stuff. And I just music just came very, very naturally to me from the beginning, and then I got into classical music, and all the way through high school, I played with and I wound up playing timpani. That's one reason I used timpani with the Allman Brothers, is because I was a timpanist in high school with the Florida All-State High School Symphony Orchestra timpanist, and actually got the job as a student conductor. I got to conduct the Dvorak New World Symphony as a 12th grader in high school, which was a very powerful moment. Having an orchestra at your control.
Yeah.
And then I went off to college and kind of got out of music because I did get into a rock and roll band in high school, and picked up drums, started in the 8th grade with a marching band, and then, it followed the usual, got a set of drums, learned how to play them, and then got into a rock and roll band. But about the time I went off to college, 1966, there was really nothing going on. It was the Beatles had just come out with, and their first 2 albums to me were just refurbished Chuck Berry.
Ah, okay, interesting.
Yeah, and then I got off to college. I went off to Florida State University, and the Byrds came out, and I started listening to the Byrds and Bob Dylan and Lovin' Spoonful, and got in this 3-piece group, and that's what we played. And then the Beatles did Rubber Soul, and all of a sudden, the music, rock and roll became more than just 3 chords and more than just, it got very serious. It got much more sophisticated.
Right. The Chuck Berry stuff was out the window for the Beatles then.
Yeah. It's still, Chuck Berry is great, and that's all fun and everything, but as a musician, it's not all that challenging,
Right.
And so, as it got more and more sophisticated, I liked it, because that's coming from that classical background. I was trained, and I knew my technique, and in fact, I was the only member of the original Allman Brothers band that could read and write music, and it was kind of funny. So
sure. Now, Butch, the 31st of February band.
That was the bitter end.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, we put out an album with Vanguard Records, and the Bitter End Club in New York wouldn't let us use the name The Bitter End, so we had to come up with a name really fast. And our bass player came up with the 31st of February, and I thought it was dumb, and I still do, but whatever.
Yeah.
In fact, we wound up being called the Allman Brothers because we couldn't think of anything else.
That's what I had read in my research. Yeah, which is that's a pretty good story in itself, though.
Well, Dwayne, it was Dwayne's band. I mean, Dwayne started it. he came to Jacksonville, and everybody wanted to be in his band. And I had played with he and Greg. They joined up with the 31st of February. And in fact, that album that's out, that's called Twain and Greg Allman, was supposed to be the second album for the 31st of February.
Ah.
And they were still under contract to Liberty Records out in L.A., so we put Twain on there as a sideman. And Greg's vocals, that was the first time he ever recorded Melissa. But he was just laying down a pilot track for Scott Boyer, who was our singer, to sing the song. And then the whole thing fell apart, and these crooks down in Miami, once the Allman Brothers hit real big, they put they took the cover, they took the picture off of Idlewild South and put it on the cover and called the damn album Twain and Greg Allman. And so,
anything for a buck, yeah.
You got it. You got it. It's the music business. It's the rule. It's not the exception.
Between you and J-Mo, though, two different styles. You were more of a powerful, conventional beat, and J-Mo was more of a jazz influence guy. As I think it was Dickie Betts who gave you the Freight Train moniker and talked about your meat and potatoes type drumming. Talk a little bit about the two styles, Butch, between you and J-Mo.
Yeah, it's not something that we ever talked about.
Okay.
And it's something that from the very beginning it just worked. And it's not I've never worked with another drummer where it just the two styles meshed so well. And the only problem that we had was with the bass drums getting in the way. So the way we solved that is J-Mo would play an 18-inch bass drum and not muffle it. So my bass drum would be the boom, boom, boom to drive the band, and his bass drum was more like a big tom-tom. So that was really the only conflict that I have, but that we would have. But our styles, because my background was coming from rock and roll, and his was jazz. And not only did that, make us able to play together without getting in each other's way. In fact, complimenting each other. Mm-hmm. J-Mo's the one who turned us all on to John Coltrane and Miles Davis and Chick Corea and Charlie Parker and all of that. And that's, I think, that's what made the Allman Brothers something special.
Well, the styles melded, Butch, on the drums, sort of like the guitars melded together, the two lead guitars.
Yeah, and it's also the way that we play, because we would come in, Cream kind of opened the door to improvising in rock and roll, but they came from a blues,
right.
From a blues background. It's strictly blues. And so their jams tended to be pretty monodynamic and would be one chord, and but they did open the door to improvising, and we picked it up from there. And then once J-Mo turned us on to jazz, and we started thinking, hey, wait a minute, we started jamming. We don't have to stay in one chord. In fact, we can start out quiet and then build it up and then change keys and even change time signatures and just do whatever,
Yeah.
When you're improvising, that's really what you should be doing. And, so, we'd get up and every night it's one way that you can play the same song for 45 years and it still has intensity and it's still fun because every night it's different.
Exactly. What a great point.
Never do it the same way twice.
What a great point. Yeah. And you guys also, you realized that the audience was a big part of what you did and that couldn't be duplicated in the studio. So you went and did Fillmore East.
Yeah, exactly. But let's kind of back up here.
Go ahead.
The first thing that we realized is because we took our brand of music out on the road, and nobody had really heard it before. So our first couple of times around the country, it wasn't an overwhelming success. You know, I remember the one night. This is a real good example. We opened for Iggy Pop in Detroit, and we got up there and played our brand of music. And you can imagine what Iggy Pop's audience thought of that. I mean, and I don't think they had any idea what to think. They basically just stood there and went, "What the hell?"
Yeah.
So I mean, what we learn is, and it's still to this day, if you're playing music, and if you're really focused on playing music, it is completely selfish. You're doing it for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I play to make myself feel good, and that's where it starts. And then you get with people that you can communicate with, and you find people that have that same approach to music, and then we start communicating with each other, and then that really explodes, and then eventually the audience picks up on it. But you know, if you're up there to play to the audience, then you're entertaining.
Right.
You know, music is a very selfish thing. You got to do it to make yourself feel good, and then it's honest, and once the audience gets in and they start adding that energy, then you can get things like the Fillmore East or the next to the last night. We closed the Fillmore East, and the night before closing night, we went on stage at 1 o'clock in the morning and finished at 8 o'clock the next morning. We went 7 hours straight.
Not too shabby.
It was just unbelievable, you know. And it's not, you can't do that without, you know, bringing the crowd into what you're doing. You get a loop going where you get the energy going, and then they feed it back, and then you throw it back, and then they feed it back, and it's just, and you can just go places that you could never go, you know, just sitting in a practice room.
Yeah, it spills over.
And that's one reason we decided to do a live album, because, you know, in the studio, you have to play a lot simpler. You can't really let loose, and you have to be much more careful. And you don't have the energy of the crowd.
Right. Now, you had a great relationship with Dwayne, we know. People may not realize that the extent you guys were into literature and philosophy and the viewpoints that you shared. Talk a little bit about that for us, Butch.
Wow. Well, Dwayne...
This should take us up to the end, right?
Yeah, Dwayne was he's the most intense human being I've ever known. If I had met Dwayne Allman, I'd probably be a math teacher. Because, you know, the one thing that Dwayne taught me, and I really don't have time to tell the whole story, but, I mean, it was before he invited me into the Allman Brothers, he had to make sure that I had the confidence to do it, because up until this particular moment, I was kind of introverted, and if the music wasn't really going, I would tend to think, oh, everybody's looking at me, and I'd pull back. And, you know, J-Mo kept telling him, hey, Butch is the guy you want in the band, but, you know, Dwayne had played with me before, and he knew I had that flaw. And so one day we're jamming, and I did that, and he turned around and played this lick, and it was like, come on, damn it. And my first reaction was to back up. And he did it again. Then he did it again, and you know, there's hundreds of people looking at him showing me up. And so I got mad. And I started hitting the drums like I was hitting him. And he started hitting back at me, and I was hitting at him, and it just... And then he backed up and smiled and went, there you go.
Yeah.
And it's like he reached inside and flicked a switch, because the music was soaring. And this light bulb went off. I said, Butch, you can play. I mean, quit being just let it go. I mean, you may not be the greatest drummer in the world, but you can play, and always give it everything you got. And from that moment to this, that's the way I do it. That's the way I approach, and that's probably when they call me the freight train.
And it keeks rolling, that's for sure.
But Dwayne dropped out of high school in the 10th grade.
Okay.
And he was better educated than almost any college graduate that I know. He taught himself algebra.
I couldn't even learn that from somebody else.
No, come on. I mean, Dwayne figured it out sitting in a schoolroom, listening to some teacher that he was probably 5 times smarter than, and he said, I don't need to sit here and listen to this. I just get the books and teach myself. So he did. And he and I were both avid readers, and I was just starting to scratch the surface with philosophy, but I was knee deep into Tolkien. And
okay.
So I turned Dwayne on to that, and his daughter's name is Galadriel.
Right.
And so we used to go fishing all the time, and we'd pull into a town and have an afternoon off. He and I'd go find a lake somewhere and just buy a couple of cheap rod and reels and just sit on a bank and talk about books. And we went through Tolkien, and then he read somewhere that Friedrich Nietzsche, made the comment or said that life without music wouldn't be worth living. He said, anybody will say that. I want to know what else he has to say. So we dove right into all of those Sprach Zarathustra, and trust me, that was a very deep dive, and it was really good because we would sit there and talk for a couple of hours, and he'd pick up on things that I wouldn't get. I'd pick up on things that he wouldn't get. So we helped each other through some stuff that we probably couldn't have gotten through by ourselves. And so we got through Nietzsche and then to John Locke and then to Rousseau. And that's what we were in the middle of when he was killed. And
what a great story.
I think Rousseau is still my favorite. And, I guess Rousseau, if all the hippies out there knew it, he was definitely a philosopher of the hippies.
Well, what a good story about Dwayne Allman. Well, we got Butch Trucks with us tonight on Sports Talk 1240. Now, after Dwayne's death, we lost Dwayne. Another album comes out. You guys realize that you have to keep going on without Dwayne. Eat a Peach.
Yeah, well, that was a tough. I mean, I don't know. You've kind of gotten a little bit about what kind of man he was and the influence he had on people. I mean, if you were lucky enough to know him, he changed you, and it was for the better. I mean, Dwayne was to get a little literary again, he was like Goethe's Faust.
Okay.
He wanted to experience everything life had to offer. But his focus, he had a laser focus on music. Now, but you don't play music 24/7. You've got other parts of life. There's other things going on. And Dwayne experimented with everything. When I met him, he was taking Black Beauty's methadone. Mm-hmm. And, he played around with it for a while. And as soon as he realized it was messing with his music, he stopped and never touched them again. And, that's the way he was. He would try everything, try it. And as soon as he realized that it was messing with his music, then that would be put away. And those things that would help him out or, teach him or that felt good and wouldn't harm him or hurt his music, that he would keep. And, he was just an incredible, incredible human being. And when he died, he was our leader. but he didn't demand it. He put together a band, and he let everybody have their own voice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was everyone knew that he was the leader, but he didn't act like it. He just, if something had to be done with management or something like that, he'd take care of it. But when it came to the music, it was a band of equals, and it was one reason. I mean, he really fought the whole calling it the Allman Brothers Band. He said, it's maybe I put this band together, but this is a band of equals, and I don't want it to be named after me.
Uh-huh.
And it was our manager who finally, we just couldn't come up with anything else. Believe it or not, the first gig we ever played, we called ourselves Beelzebub.
I had read something about that name coming up in the choices, Butch. Yeah.
Yep. That was it.
Yeah.
And I don't think that was a good choice. and I think once Wayne thought about it, he didn't either. So, but we just couldn't come up with anything else. And, we had the first album ready to go. We had all this music ready to go, and we had to have a name. And our manager kept pounding away, saying, Wayne, people know who he was. I mean, by that time, he'd already done, all, Wilson Pickett's Hey Jude and Aretha Franklin, and it did tons and tons of stuff coming out of Muscle Shoals. So, he had a reputation, and our manager just wanted to use his name to try to help us get started. And like I said, we couldn't come up with anything else, and so we called ourselves the Allman Brothers Band, but we didn't think that Twain was going to die and leave us with his brother. So, but he did. And we kept going. We just couldn't stop. We just couldn't,
Well, that was a great legacy.
It was as much a tribute to Twain as anything else, because we talked about it. You say, this is Twain's band. Can we really keep going? And then we just came to the conclusion that there's nothing else we can do. We have to. We can't let this go. It's too good. It's too new, and it's too intense, and it was still so powerful. And even though Dwayne wasn't up there, and we took a little turn from the direction where we were headed, that wound up kind of it's kind of one of the main reasons that we broke up in '76. But we kind of lost track of the music and where we were going, and became rock stars and got completely out of control. But anyway.
You took up residency at the Beacon after a while. What did that?
Yeah, we did, didn't we?
Yeah, for a little bit. Yeah, a couple of dates there. What did that mean to the band, coming back to the Beacon every March, every year?
Oh, I miss it. God, I miss it. I really do. It was 25 years, 357 sellouts in a row.
Amazing.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's ever going to beat that one.
No, I think Jerry Seinfeld's trying to do it, Butch. He's set himself up at the Beacon now for 12 months out of the year. We'll see what he does, but he won't come
Who's
close.
that?
Jerry Seinfeld.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
The comedian.
Yeah, but he's doing one show at a time.
That's
right?
it. Yeah, he's got nowhere near the chops that the A-Bros do. Are you sorry that you didn't do a final studio album, Butch?
No.
Okay.
No, and I keep reading it from Derek and Warren and all that about how, but the bottom line is, especially coming from Derek, I'm going, well, where's he coming from? Because the last 5-10 years that he was in the Allman Brothers, it was all we could do to get 30, 40 shows a year out of him. Because he was putting most of his energy into what he was doing and not the Allman Brothers. So I don't know where the hell it takes a lot of time to put together a record. You got to write all the material, then you have to learn everything well enough to where, you can play it like you know how to play it. And then you have to spend several $100,000 making the damn thing, and they don't sell anymore.
Right.
And it's, like I say, it's not all that much fun. And so,
good point.
no, I wish that we would have had more new songs toward the end, because, you know, as things were winding down, Greg started going in his own direction. Warren and Derek had their own bands, and they were writing more. They were writing the tunes for their stuff, not for the Allman Brothers. So, you know, I would have liked more new material, but, you know,
okay.
we didn't get it, and so we got pretty good. We had a pretty good 45-year run.
I would say, yeah. Now here comes the sports, Butch. You ready for this?
Okay.
Virgil Fire Trucks. People don't know that the great Virgil Trucks is the uncle to the legendary Butch Trucks.
No, he's not my uncle.
He's not.
No, we traced it down, and I'm not quite sure. I guess he'd be like a third cousin or something.
All right.
My great grandfather was his great grandfather's brother.
Okay, think about that one, folks.
No, it's the other way around.
Okay.
His great grandfather was my great grandfather's brother. That's what it was. Yes.
All right.
So we're related, but
not as close as everybody thinks. Okay.
No.
Now let's get to the Freight Train Band. You got your son in there, Vaylor, Barry Oakley Jr., a legacy. Heather Gillis looks to be a great talent. You're back in Charleston coming up, and then I guess you're back in France. So give us a little rundown on the Freight Train.
Well, you kind of hit it there. I bought a place over in France. I bought an old. The foundation is actually Roman, which makes it at least 3rd century.
Wow!
And the room where I sit and practice, and I've got a big 7.1 surround sound system, and my computer and everything. That's kind of new. It's from the 12th century.
Yeah, no.
So the room I'm sitting in was like 400 years old when Columbus landed here.
Yeah. Oh, that's a much. Oh, some setup.
Yeah. So, but anyway, my wife and I went over last May and stayed, and after about, you know, I hadn't played since last October when we finished the Allman Brothers, and I just reached the point. I got to play. I've got to play.
Yeah. And
I came over and played with some buddy of mine from West Palm Beach. My wife and I have a condo there, and then I got a call from Barry, and he said, "Hey, you want to get something started?" And I went, "Hell yeah!"
Yeah.
So we got us a manager, and Barry was playing with us. Damon Fowler, who's the other guitar player with the Freight Train, who's a smoking guitar player. And I had just gone to Tallahassee with that band that I went over. It's one of the places I played when I came back over. I went back to Tallahassee, where I lived for 16 years, and played this funky club. And somebody comes up and tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, there's this girl here that she wants to sit in, and she's very good." And up came this gorgeous 20-year-old girl, and my first reaction is, "Boy, this girl suck," you know? Because most beautiful women I've known never really took the time to really work at anything. I mean, it's kind of...
They don't have to. Yeah.
It's like being born a billionaire. Why work, you know? You don't have to. So she got up and she started singing that old Bill Withers song, "Ain't No Sunshine."
Ain't No Sunshine, yeah.
And then she started playing the damn guitar, and I mean, she blew me away. And she is now a full-fledged member of the Freight Train Band. Her name's Heather Gillis. And so you got my 68-year-old butt up there, and she just turned 21, and we got everything in between.
Well, that's great.
My son Vaylor, and and Damon and Bruce Katz playing keyboards, and I got an old buddy named Tad Ish that plays on some of the Allman Brothers tunes. You kind of have to have two sets of drums, so he helps me out with the drums, and then he'll play on a few of the songs. But we do like 4 or 5 Allman Brothers songs tonight. I don't want this to be an Allman Brothers cover band,
right?
But I insist that we keep that same freedom, that same level of intensity, and freedom where we can improvise, and we're not up there doing the same damn thing every night,
Right.
And everybody in the band has the same attitude, and we're having a ball.
Outstanding.
I mean, we're having a ball. We've only played 13 or 14 shows, and if you want to go on to Facebook, go to my page. Just go to Butch Trucks go to the Facebook page.
Okay.
And there is a full concert that we did last week.
We'll have to check that out.
It was only the second show of this run, so it's a little bit rusty, but you'll see everybody, and you can feel the intensity.
Great. Well, I'll tell you, Butch, It's been a pleasure. It's been an honor having you with us tonight. I really appreciate you taking time out of your Super Bowl Sunday night to be with us.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm not a pro football fan. I'm Florida State Seminole, dyed in the wool. I mean, I just bleed garnet and gold. And I don't know. Once I used to like the NFL when I was a kid, but once free agency came along, it just wasn't the same anymore.
No.
You're pulling for these guys one year, and the next year you hate them, and you're supposed to like the guys you hated the year before, and it just You're
just rooting for a uniform.
Yeah, you got it. But at Florida State, I mean, they have the misfortune of getting really good players, so they don't stick around more than about 2 years, but at least they don't go to another college.
Right. Great. Well, thanks for being with us, Butch.
All right. Thank you.
Thank Doug for putting it together, too.
All right. We hope to be up there pretty soon.
Great. We'll look for you, Butch. Take care. Butch Trucks, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, bye-bye.